Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining the session today. Today, we'll be discussing how we can transform workplace operations, diving into unlock lease intelligence with LeaseCore and workplace service delivery. So during the session today, I'm joined with some of our experts. We have Calvin Yoha, who is the CEO of Ignova, so who leads the entire team for everything around LeaseCore. We also have Nelson Chan, who is the head of sales engineering at Ignova. And then last but not least, we have Brett Fisher, who is part of our product management team here at on the ServiceNow team. So leading as a senior director, the team on the product side. As we dive into the session today, most of the things that we'll be discussing are available today in the products. So everything we discuss around WSD, but also LeaseCore is available. However, we might allude to something that is coming on the roadmap or any of the strategic vision that we have for the product. So I do want to make sure that everyone understands here today that we might allude to some of that. So we want to make sure this is under safe harbor. Timing of the release and capabilities that we might discuss might change in scope and in time. Therefore, we want to make sure that that is under safe harbor. We will make sure to call that out as we discuss that. So please stay tuned for some of these new capabilities. Just want to point out that this session that is brought to you today by Live on ServiceNow is part of a broader series, so 360 Exchange series. If you want to make sure to stay connected, have the latest, be updated as soon as we have a new session on specifically workplace service delivery, you can scan the QR code, which is shown on the screen, so you can be updated with any of the upcoming sessions. And then lastly, before I hand it over to the team to get started, I do want to have a few housekeeping rules. So we do have a Q&A section. Make sure to post any questions that you might have through the Q&A. We have a dedicated piece throughout the session where we'll allocate some time to go through that Q&A, make sure we provide you with the best answers and guidance. If we do have questions that we aren't able to answer live today, or you need more context or more detail, we can also make sure to follow up with you individually. This presentation is, of course, being recorded and will be shared out after the event. So you can expect the session to be shown on YouTube and delivered on community within 7 days after the session today. So you can also catch the recording, share it with a colleague that might not have been able to attend, or just review it if you want to focus on specific topics that were mentioned. And then last but not least, to make sure that we improve on the sessions that we deliver through this Live on ServiceNow 360 Exchange series, we will provide you with a quick survey as soon as you leave the Zoom to make sure that we can capture any feedback in terms of how did you enjoy this session, what the key learnings, were there any specific questions. Also, feel free to add in that short survey any questions that you might have within regards to workplace service delivery or specifically in regards to LeaseCore. We'll make sure to provide the best answer, but also can schedule a follow-up if you need additional detail. So having set those ground rules, please feel free to send any message you might have through the Q&A and throughout the session. If you want to ask anything specifically, we'll make sure to find time throughout the session to respond to some of those. And having said all of that, I'm now going to hand it over to Calvin to take us through LeaseCore.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And as she said, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining from. Thank you for this time together with us today. What I want to talk about is LeaseCore within WSD. We're excited to show you actually a couple screenshots as well as a live demo for what this looks like. Every decision starts with location, and we have location baked within ServiceNow, and we're building on top of that by using that location to build leases on top of that, so your data is all in one system. If you go to the next slide, please. What we have is we have lease management in ServiceNow. And so the CMN location table is actually the bedrock or the foundation of where every employee is tied to, every ticket, every space, every office location, and all of your lease information, all of your data, and all the lease payments that come out of that. So the CMN location table is the bedrock. It's important. And we thought, hey, let's build an application that reads from the same table, the same database, so that we can just extend the reach of WSD. Next slide. So LeaseCore is an application that is built within WSD. You need to have WSD license, enterprise licenses to use it, but it seamlessly integrates together with ServiceNow WSD. It's the same user experience, it's the same look and feel, and it's definitely built right inside the platform it is meant to have and give you the exact same feature functionality and look and feel that you're used to within WSD. And if you go to that next slide, it is available today on the store. It works on Yokohama and it also works on Zurich. So we've certified it on 2 platforms, and we're excited to show you what that looks like. So if you go to the next slide, I want to start talking about the industry. We do not know where your journey is, but you may have leases in a spreadsheet, you may have leases in a system. But if you look at that top row across from left to right, if you have leases in a spreadsheet, most likely you'll have some errors in that. Not only that, even if you have it within a system, you could still have errors. There's a lot of key man errors in abstracting a lease. There's a lot of legal language in a lease. It is called legalese for a reason. And to read it and to abstract the information properly is one thing, but it sits stagnant in the system. This leads to your overpayment and sometimes having invoices given to you. You have thousands of invoices to process, and they usually hit accounts payable, and they get paid without even really thinking too much about, what the legal language specifies in the lease. And when you have a large and growing portfolio, it becomes very difficult to manage. So that means that the most of us who are tenants overpay our landlords for our leases. Coming out of COVID, a lot of companies are now shedding up to 30% of their space. 1 in 5 companies are looking to do that. And we have a record number of renewals coming up this year, because that's just, a 3-year run after COVID. 85 million square feet in the US alone is coming up into play. If you don't have a good grip on your lease portfolio, you cannot be strategic with the decisions you're making. And with all these changes in the marketplace, you better be ready and understand how your portfolio, what it's telling you in order to make those good decisions. And onto that last row, what we're seeing a lot of SaaS bloat. It's easy to buy a SaaS system. Every department buys their own SaaS system. And what ends up happening is we spend a lot of our IT budget integrating those solutions, because you're keying in the same data 5 or 6 different times. You don't have the same data across. So sometimes we even have integration hubs that all the systems talk to so that it can talk back to them. And so we're creating this, this huge ball of wax in order to create systems that talk to each other. And so 75% of organizations are looking at reducing SaaS bloat. And in addition to that, a lot of that SaaS budget, 66% of it, is just spent on maintaining those systems. And we're not using that budget to innovate our systems, improve our processes, and use things better. So the whole idea of building LeaseCore on top of ServiceNow is you have a wonderful platform that speaks to many different pillars within WSD and other modules of ServiceNow, so that you don't have to key in the same data more than once. You have consistent data across the board. I'm going to invite Brett to talk about how Lease has evolved over the years. Brett?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Calvin. I really appreciate it. For those of us who've been involved in sort of the lease technology space for a little while now, there's certainly been evolution in the technology and the technology stack. There's a lot of innovation circa 2014 through 2017 as ASC 842 and IFRS 16 sort of took hold in the market, and a lot of organizations invested pretty substantial technology investments into solving primarily for the needs of the controller's office or the treasury in terms of managing the lease accounting requirements. And I think many organizations solve the compliance problem as part of the new government regulations that came out close to 10 years ago now. And I think that the downside to that, or the evolution of that, is many corporate real estate departments sort of question whether or not they got the value out of those technology implementations that the controller's office got, because you sort of have this desire, right, to be very much compliant with the lease accounting standards, but as a result of that oftentimes resulted in sort of either lack of prioritization of the corporate real estate function, or just kind of not either pulling in the data, not abstracting the data that wasn't important from a operational or administrative perspective. And so what ended up happening is many organizations either didn't get value for the lease administration function, or if they did get value, oftentimes they implemented separate solutions. And what we also saw was sort of this rise of like individualized point solutions resulting in missed renewals, delayed reporting, redundant manual work, et cetera. And that was, of course, problematic for many organizations that invested substantial sums of money. And so I think where we are today is two components. One is organizations are rethinking their sort of lease technology stack, right? The technical debt of a 10-year-old solution now is the depreciation of the 10-year-old solution now is kind of fully rolled off the books. And so they're starting to look at new solutions from a lease perspective. And I think the other perspective is if you sort of look at all of the different enterprise functions that are being transformed by AI, the lease, a lease is sort of just a contract, and contract management is being transformed substantially by AI, in particular around the abstraction piece. So, what used to take hours, if not weeks, to abstract an individual lease now can take just a couple minutes. And I think that the Ignova team is super excited to show you all what they're doing from an AI abstraction perspective. And so when you think about sort of the value of having an AI native lease solution like the Ignova capabilities are delivering, there's real value to the bottom line in terms of not only abstracting much faster, but also substantially increasing the quality of the abstraction output. And that means, again, more accurate payment data, but it also means, maybe having data that you didn't have around key responsibilities as well, and renewal clauses and whatnot. The level of precision that you get with AI versus, a manual lease abstractor is pretty good. So anyway, so super excited about where Lease is headed. I think the Ignova team has done something pretty transformational here in launching LeaseCore on the workplace service delivery solution. And so I couldn't be more excited about the demo that we're about to do and what this means for the future of Lease.
Thanks, Brett. Elizabeth, if you can go to the next slide. Our goal is to really democratize lease abstraction and lease management. And, previously you have these large systems that are very scary to use, require a lot of skill and a lot of experience in getting lease data into a system. And then it might sit in that system and stay stagnant in that system until you touch it again. Now you have the power of AI to be able to abstract that data very, very quickly. You can validate the data before it goes into your system, and then you can start to use the engine to ask it questions and to get more out of that data. And so you're not necessarily worried about building a team, building feature functionality in the system. You have the basics in the system. It becomes a lot less scary to use. And it's on the same platform. You're not having to recreate data and rebuild a tool out of nowhere, out of a specific SaaS tool in order to get the data out or to get value out of your system. And so we're seeing a much quicker kind of return on your investment, and also the ability to challenge some of the invoices that you may be paying, or how you negotiate leases from a portfolio perspective. Elizabeth, next slide, please. So what we're going to show you in LeaseCore, these are some of the features that are available today. We'll show you the lease AI abstraction, so data validation and clause analysis. We also have a chatbot that you can interact with your lease data, as well as there's critical dates, approvals, payment management, and the basics for just managing a lease. And without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Nelson, who will give you a live demo of the system. Nelson. Nelson, you're on mute.
Can everybody see my screen here?
Yes. So for those that can't see
Perfect.
the screen, at the top of the Zoom, you'll be able to see Nelson Chan's screen. So if you don't see it, please select that so you can visualize the demo.
Perfect. Thank you. So we're excited to share with you all LeaseCore. It is intended to manage the lease lifecycle. There are two critical components within the lease lifecycle that we're looking to manage. One is the lease abstraction. Secondly, within LeaseCore is managing the lease administration day-to-day payments and clauses and critical dates. I'm going to first start off with the lease abstraction. The moment we have an executed lease, whether it's a net new lease or renewal lease, we're able to use our AI solution to have AI abstract leases. You could see here our portfolio dashboard. of what our leases look like. We have the ability to see our leases by landlord. It looks like for this particular lease, we have 4 leases with a particular landlord. But let's get right into our abstraction. Oh, let me log in right here. And I'm logging into our lease AI solution here. I have individual leases that have been abstracted. What we would do is upload the execute agreement, the PDF, and have the system run it through the system using a large language model. You could see here that I have a scanned PDF on the right-hand side. The system would typically abstract the information. I can click into individual fields and identify exactly where that information has been abstracted from. And as an end user, what I would do is validate the information. So typically to abstract a lease, it could be anywhere up to 8 hours. With our Lease AI solution, we're looking anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour to abstract, depending on the number of fields. An office lease could be more complex. You could have 300 fields versus a network lease. You may have 200 fields. And that's why the variance between abstraction time can vary quite a bit. You can see here, as I review the lease, I'll be able to click on the thumbs up to validate that it is correct. I'll also have the ability to overwrite certain information if it is not correct. So here, this is Portland, perhaps it is not Portland, maybe it's New York, and then I'll be able to click the check mark to validate it. The AI solution also has the ability to read handwritten information. So perhaps we have dates that are handwritten. We'll be able to read that as well. And as I review the lease, I'll be able to click through this information that has been validated. Once we have fully validated all the data elements within a lease, we're able to directly integrate this with into LeaseCore, which is an application within ServiceNow. Before I get into LeaseCore, I did want to share other capabilities. So Brett talked about automation. This is what we're seeing in the market, is to be able to provide more efficiency, better use of our time. And the second part Brett mentioned is portfolio intelligence. 10 years ago, we just shoved data into the system to be able to manage our lease accounting. And now we want more out of this data. We have a lot of disparate systems. We have a lot of data located in here, but we need to be able to extract information out of here. So one example is that we have this chatbot. Perhaps I want to know what is the lease expiration date. So I can use natural language to ask questions. And what the system is able to do is the AI model is able to look through the lease to identify when exactly is the lease expiration date. And not only that, it will be able to identify where it has abstracted that information from this executed lease agreement. So you can see here that it has returned a value here. And I can see that the expiration date is August 30th of 2025. We can also view this at a portfolio level. So there is portfolio intelligence where we're able to ask questions at a portfolio level. So for example, here, I have my portfolio of leases. I'll be able to add all my leases to my portfolio that I want to query on, add these leases. Next, I can use natural language to ask a question. So perhaps I want to ask about HVAC. I'd like to know if we have to pay for HVAC. And here I can ask the question, do I have to pay overtime for HVAC? And I will be able to add this question here and run our AI solution. So what it is doing right now, it is reading through every single lease that we have in our portfolio and reviewing whether we have OT HVAC clause specified in here. We may have our leadership ask questions where we need to have more detail. Perhaps that information hasn't been abstracted. So this is where it may take weeks, days, weeks to obtain this information across our entire portfolio. We are able to use our AI solution to ask questions using natural language to identify this within minutes or hours of our portfolio. So it will take some time to run through this query, but what I've done is shown here what the results would look like. And right here, what I've done is ask, do we have OT HVAC? You could see here that it has returned results. There are certain states that have OT clause specified. Not only that, but we can ask additional questions. I've asked here, is there an hourly rate applicable? So it has abstracted the information as well. So we're able to obtain valuable information intelligence within our portfolio. Going back to our original report we ran, let's just see if it's still running through the results. You could see here that as it's starting to run through this query, it is returning results actively. So you could see here that some of these have returned yes, and we were able to filter on these answers here. So once we have leases abstracted, we're able to run an integration directly into LeaseCore. And let me show you what LeaseCore looks like. I'll just log back in here. You can see here, this is our LeaseCore dashboard. What's important to at the leadership level is what our portfolio looks like. We have our total number of leases. I'm able to click into here and view all leases in my portfolio. What's important is also leases that are expiring within the next 6 to 12 months. Do we need to decide to renew these leases? Do we need to look for a new location, or do we need to let this lease naturally expire and relocate these folks from these locations? So this is important to be able to triage leases. We also have our lease portfolio by status. Perhaps we want to view which leases are in holdover. These are at risk. Do we need to review signing a longer term lease? We also have our portfolio of leases by gross lease and triple net. Perhaps there's additional costs that we have to incur that we need to account for. So again, this provides us the visibility that our leadership needs to see. We have our leases by primary use. I can click into our office portfolio and see exactly where our leases are located. We also have that visibility as a visual view. We can click into individual on a global map and view where our leases are located. Other additional information that might be important to lease management are our options. What are options are that we need to exercise, that we have available to us? Should we need to exercise it, or do we need to negotiate net new leases? Looking into, let me open up our sample lease here. And when we built LeaseCore, we took in consideration a lot of key features that we've seen in the industry. Having worked in the industry for the past 15 years in lease management, we've seen what are the critical dates that are needed, reminders that are critical to end users and lease administrators. So that's why we've added these critical dates down below. And based off these critical dates, we generate system-generated reminders. We also leverage ServiceNow WSD. So Calvin mentioned CMN tables, location tables. We leverage that, so we're not loading a set of net new tables here. We have our contact information, who's approving the lease, who's managing the lease. And let me skip over some of this information, but cost allocation. This is something critical functionality that we've seen a lot of clients ask for is, do we have the ability to allocate costs back to multiple departments, multiple business units? Yes, we do. This is functionality that we've built out. Our clause information, that's available through the abstraction using our AI solution. Options as well, whether we have renewal option, early termination option, all that information would be coming through our Lease AI solution as that data, all of those data elements are mapped into LeaseCore. And then moving on to our payments, not only do we have our current payment amount, but we have our payments over the entire lease term and different payment types. Perhaps we have base rent, operating or CAM charges. We have visibility into our lease obligation for the remainder of the term. We have access to individual payments. If the landlord calls, then we'll be able to see what has been paid and what still remains outstanding. And not only that, but we have our approval history log and our audit trail of leases, of data elements that have changed on this particular lease. The last thing I want to cover is the ability to batch rent or run our rent roll, so-called. And here I'll run through a quick example. Perhaps we are in the month of November. We would have issued our rent roll. So here I'll be able to select rent roll for the month of November, select from November 1st all the way to the end of November. And what this is doing is retrieving all the payments I have in the system that are due in the month of November. I'll be able to select these payments so that I could assign it to the batch and create vouchers and integrate this to our ERP. So we're excited for the opportunity to be able to leverage AI to be able to provide more portfolio intelligence and also automation. So that kind of wraps up our LeaseCore demo. I'll pass it back over to Calvin.
Yes, thanks. Thanks so much, Nelson. Elizabeth, if you can put on the slide and also run the poll. So we have some questions for you guys. Now it becomes the interactive part of the presentation. And we have a couple quizzes or questions while you guys consume the slide and answer some of these questions. And so we will have a live poll and see what we come back with. But the point of this slide is really to highlight, it is not necessarily not having a solution. It's staying with your fragmented one. Your fragmented solution today, whether it's in Excel or whether it's a point solution, those matter, because what's going to happen is you might have disconnected data, your leases become liabilities, growth stalls. You don't have the ability to scale, and you have a lot of hidden expenses. So as we go through these polls, are we able to see the results of them?
Just running through the different polls because we have quite a few, but what we've seen so far is quite a few people are using spreadsheets to be able to do this. And right now, also looking at this question, a lot of people are mentioning it could take up to 8 hours. So which is rather impressive. We have one or two more questions. I'll just pop them in here. In terms of automation, is anyone on the session today using any automation, any AI tools already to streamline the workflows, or is this something that you're looking into? If you have any specific questions regarding the demo that just happened, also feel free to put any questions in the chat. We do have a Q&A part coming up. So that was the question around automation. And then we have one last question around strategic versus operational. So I'm just trying to, I think that one was already started. Let me just put this one. In terms of, do you view your leases as strategic assets or just operational overview? So this is really to kind of get an understanding in terms of your organization. So a lot of people are seeing it more strategic. I think 100% of people, no one is seeing it as operational today. So thanks everyone for taking the time to respond to these questions. I know there was quite a few coming at you, but this is really helpful for us to understand everyone on the session today.
And generally, what we like to say is that under a 50 portfolio lease, you can probably manage most of it through spreadsheets or regular, just having your leases on a shared folder. But the minute you start to grow, the minute you get your invoices coming in and starting to flow, it becomes unmanageable to make sure that you're checking that against, maybe just even overtime HVAC. And you could be saving a lot of money by looking at your lease portfolio and just questioning what you're getting in terms of payment. We have a couple. So now we want to turn the time over for Brett and I to do a little bit of Q&A and fireside chat. Perhaps let's address a few questions before we get into some of other questions we have. So one of the questions here I see is percentage rent. So that is coming in our roadmap. We don't have percentage rent baked into LeaseCore today, but it is soon coming. So we will have the ability to have that functionality in the system. And multi-language abstraction. So very good question about multi-language. So what we found in terms of abstracting other languages is that not only is there nuance baked into language, but there's also different legal laws and rights based on where you sign a lease. So even if the data was translated in a word-for-word format, it may not mean the same thing within that local jurisdiction. So what our recommendation always is to use a local translator to translate the lease into English and then have the system abstract out of English, because there's a nuance in how that translation happens and it's not always word for word. So using a system to do that could be problematic, and it might not lead you down the right path.
Awesome.
Elizabeth, are you able to
Yeah, a
ask
few
your
few
first
other
question for us?
questions. Lease data often sits siloed from workplace and facility systems. How do you see lease data enriching workplace decisions such as restacking, cost allocation, space optimization, everything within the ServiceNow ecosystem?
Yeah, maybe do you want me to take that, Calvin?
Sure.
And I can talk to it from a ServiceNow perspective, and then you can offer the Ignova perspective. So super good question. And I think it shows a lot of the value of the platform strategy. So when you think about making decisions around space management, for example, intersecting that with lease data oftentimes adds a lot of value for customers. In particular because you may be deciding that certain leases, right, they may be up for renewal, and you may be making some space management decisions based on what leases are up for renewal, what leases have maybe higher cost per square foot versus lower cost per square foot, different types of amenities, responsibilities, et cetera. So there's a lot of sort of rich contextual data that comes with a lease, and being able to pull that into the CAFM and IWMS system, like with what WSD offers, is a super compelling opportunity. And I think where things get especially interesting is with AI. With our workplace advisor capability that's coming out very soon, the ability to ask questions of both space and lease data, for a workplace planner, workplace administrator, workplace manager, is also quite compelling, right? So now at your fingertips, you can say, what lease is expiring the soonest, and what's the occupancy or utilization of that particular space, and help to make space planning, lease administration, types of decisions. So lots of value that comes from from being able to intersect these two types of data points. Calvin, do you have anything to add?
That platform play is really it. I mean, you have all the data in one system. There's a bunch of AI agents that you can turn on within ServiceNow. And what I see, and where I think the industry is going, is you traditionally had space planning, running a new stacking model once a quarter or once a year, and it was very, very labor intensive. You're extracting data, you're consolidating in Excel spreadsheets, and then you're adding scenarios onto it, and you're making a scenario. You may or may not execute that scenario. But now with AI, what you can start to do is you can start to take data that is, seems unrelated, even something like how people migrate through your space, and kind of use AI to start to plan your restack on a daily basis, because it doesn't take the time to do that. And so if you're using AI to do that, what you really have is you have a real-time restacking, and suggestions for maybe there's two different departments that could come in the same day and have some sort of collaboration that you wouldn't have thought possible before. And so there's a lot of changes that we can start to unlock if you're not spending all your time just maintaining and integrating systems, different SaaS solutions that are all disparate. Okay.
Awesome.
We have some more very interesting questions that have just come in. So I've seen customization efforts and onboarding become hurdles often. With the new lease abstraction module, how have you addressed the twin objectives of, one, making the tool easy for non-technical real estate lease teams to adopt with minimal IT burden, and two, ensuring extractions and validation of complex lease terms like renewals, amendments, escalations with an audit-ready trail and high confidence?
Yeah, so I'll address the first one first. I mean, Nelson mentioned we have somewhat 25 years of experience with multiple tools. And so we've seen how some tools just have, a plethora of fields, some have not enough. And so we tried to take just the right amount of fields over. Now we understand and agree that a lot of clients will have their own bespoke fields that they might need based on industry. And so for different types of industries, you might be looking for different things. And so, the goal is not to take the system and just customize it to the nines, but to do the right amount of customizations or configurations to make it such that it is easy and democratized to use. So we want to start from a very vanilla and simple user interface so that you don't overburden an upgrade, as an example. And secondly, the AI tool is learning. And so every time that you give a thumbs up to a particular question that it's asking you, it remembers. And so as you start to do that, when renewals come in, it needs to attach that renewal back to that original lease. There could be multiple renewals, and those dates we program the RAG to understand and look for these things. So it's not just a regular LLM. there's nuances in that clause. And so there's multiple dates in a lease. How do we know that that date is the one you're looking for the renewal, for the extension, or for whatever it is? Those are all things that are learning, and those continue to work. So as you interact with the AI tool, it starts to build more confidence, and it's always asking you to give it that thumbs up in terms of what it's abstracted. The next question is, I understand that this doesn't do lease accounting as of today, but does it have an easy integrability to lease accounting systems? Yeah, so the idea here, and we've worked with many different systems and clients who don't use the requisite system for lease accounting, is to export the data in a way that the lease accounting team needs to see it exactly. So there's obviously a connection between the two departments that we need to make sure we have. And so when we have that discussion, and then we have the right amount of data that we pass over to minimize the amount of, kind of re-keying information or re-asking. So there's always a handoff that we work with for the lease accounting team to be able to work in their system or in their process without too much friction. But you're right, there's no lease accounting today in LeaseCore. It is on the roadmap.
Perfect. And then probably a question for both of you. If we look at best practices, so in terms of what would we recommend in terms of maintaining a clean and synchronized lease data between the system LeaseCore that you just presented and enterprise platforms like ServiceNow? What would be some guidance?
I'll let you take that one first, Calvin, and then I can chime in from a workplace perspective.
So, I mean, reporting is obviously something that is configurable in the system. So you should, and with every system that you have, you should build reports that are looking at data cleanliness, and to have data audit reports that show you the anomalies in data. We have a rent comparison report that shows spikes or dips in your monthly lease rate, so you can just track the the large movements in data to just identify any areas that you might have either a key man error or something that jumps out at you as something to audit just before you hit pay. In addition to that, the check mark that you have on the abstraction tool, that allows you to continually have the model learn and be trained by what you deem as accurate. So if it pulls data out of a clause, is that the accurate representation of how you want that data abstracted out of that? And then finally, back to the platform play, you are not keying in location data, you're loading, or you're picking location data. People and roles, you're not keying in, you're picking them because you have a platform that has all of the data already and the integrations from your other systems already presented to you within the ServiceNow platform. Right.
Yeah, I think with this type of data, especially financial data, data quality is super important, right? If you don't have good quality data in the platform, it's going to be difficult to not only get accurate insights, but also get trust out of data from key stakeholders. And so I would just share, especially when it comes to master data, adding a governance layer is important, right? Managing role security, who can update the data, who can't update the data is important, and then adding some data quality checks in is also important. I think that the good news is that in the world of AI, that's comparatively easier than it was before, right? Because you can sort of have AI look at the data and understand what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. So the good news is it's getting easier, but it continues to be important.
Yeah, and if you picked it up in the demo that Nelson was doing, we have a table that shows the field level changes. And so if you're changing that same field 5 times, it shows you what it was from and to on the date it was changed and who changed it. So there's also always a great audit trail for every single field in the system.
Right.
And so then just adding into what you were mentioning about the AI piece, there's a question around how do you see the relationship evolving between lease admin tools and the broader workplace platforms? So specifically around everything AI analytics.
But I'll take this first.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, this is it's much bigger than lease administration and real estate as it pertains to, rent per square foot. It starts to get into user experience of the workplace and also HR. And so when you start to look at the location that you're in as an enabler or a platform for you to get together to start generating positive revenue for the company, those are things that need to come into play. So it's just kind of this full picture view of lease is just really one component of the employee experience. And so if you start to look at, well, what kind of space do we need? What are we looking to get out of that? Are we going to be able to raise the employee experience score or to have employee happiness score tracked? Those are not metrics, just like how much rent per square foot we're actually tracking. And so when you start to look at the relationship of your lease administration to your space, to your employee experience, then you start to really get a good picture of what you're shooting for and what your purpose is in designing this space.
Yeah, I could have said it myself. I said it better myself, Calvin. I think it's, yes, absolutely.
So I think based on that and based on one of the questions we had around are lease more strategic or operational, there's also a question on the fact that lease is today mostly viewed as financial, not operational. And how would you see and how have you seen based on the industry of the change of mindset to make it more actionable from that workplace experience side that you were just mentioning?
Yeah, I can take that. So I totally agree that that when it comes to sort of incorporating leases and lease data into workplace strategy and workplace experience, there's quite a few different intersections that enable lease to be a sort of a strategic asset for different organizations. And I think it starts with again, like intersecting the data so that you can make space decisions based on lease data. Right. And I think that comes into a lot of different contexts. Example that I like to use with customers often is, if you've got a TIA, a tenant improvement allowance, understanding that in a lease and what the landlord's willing to commit to create good workplace experiences for your employees is useful, right? Like, and I think having properly abstracted lease data comes part and parcel to delivering those types of services. Another example is if a landlord is responsible for providing certain types of amenities to a lessee, understanding what those amenities are and then being able to position those with their employees is also important, right? So, for example, maybe there's I don't know, a transportation benefit, for example, for employees from a nearby bus station or downtown area. Maybe there's a cafeteria benefit. Those types of services and functions that landlords provide. Having that data available, and then also, one of the things you can do with WSD is then drive workflow from that. So, example is, I've got a cafeteria in the kitchen area, and maybe I can enable employees to order using the catering application that comes in the workplace application. So quite a few different areas that we think about making Lease a strategic asset. I think that the first piece is making the data available so that you can then take that data and then intersect that with, like I said, the different experience applications that we offer and space planning applications that we offer, and then ultimately where there are amenities that are available, providing that type of information out to employees. So lots of different components that go into this. I don't know, Calvin, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just kind of one simple thing is, talking about democratizing and making things easy. You're spending a lot less time and heartache entering and managing all that data in your lease.
Yeah.
And so that unlocks, your mindset to have a lot more space to think about how you're using the space, and the data is there for you so that you don't have to manage. You're not spending time managing the data, the integrations, right? The upkeep of the system. You're really unlocking a lot more of a powerful strategy for how you're using your space. And so I think that all plays into one platform, feature set, and then the same data set throughout the system.
Awesome.
Perfect. So I think we've got two more questions, and then if there's any more questions, as I mentioned, you can put it through the survey at the end, and we'll make sure to get back to it. So one of the questions, just to clarify through the chat that came from William, making sure that there's a clear understanding of what the location is. So a CMN location is common throughout the entire ServiceNow platform. It's the the foundation for the hierarchy. WSD utilizes this specific CMN location and has the system reclassify every location. So to have it appear in WSD, every location will be classified as a region, site, campus, building, floor, space to be able to then interact with WSD. But the main kind of home of the foundation hierarchy is the CMN location.
And that's common across the entire platform.
Platform where you can have your assets, your tasks, everything is tied to that single location hierarchy.
Yeah. And Bill, I would just say if you have more questions, shoot me an email or Elizabeth an email. She's the expert, and we can happy to chat on that as well.
Yeah, and then an additional question that just came in. Some teams are still hesitant about using AI because of data privacy concerns. How does your platform address those worries? For example, around keeping clean client data secure and ensuring sensitive details are properly protected or redacted?
Yeah, so we have to follow all the same SOC compliance rules for security. If you really do need to have it airlocked, it can be put on your internal server so you don't have to use an outside solution. So those are all available.
Yeah, what I would say is ServiceNow's LLM consumes data from your instance and doesn't kind of hit the broader ecosystem as well. So like the data that sits in your corporate, your ServiceNow instances LLM doesn't intersect, like doesn't send data back up to the cloud. Or not the cloud, the broader ServiceNow LLM it's pulling from.
And this would apply for everything, even outside of Lease, making sure you've got that central AI governance to make sure any kind of data you're using through AI most of it is really sensitive. So making sure everything is under control. That's why we always recommend that you have a centralized team that takes care of all of that and make sure that you're actually compliant. So having said all of that, I think we can now move forward. Again, if there's more questions, if there's anything that we haven't gotten to, please use the survey at the end of the session so we can get back to you and then share more. If you want to see another demo, if you want additional details, we can put you in contact with the right people. So I'll hand it back over to Calvin.
Yeah, thank you all for your time today. There's some information and details. If you want to copy that down, you can reach out to us directly. We also have a special thank you for that, posting it in the chat. We also have a special it's kind of deep dive session on the 18th of November. So if you're available to join us at 12 to 1, same time online, we're going to be diving into lease administration and LeaseCore again, but at a slower pace, and just some more details for those that really want to kind of open the hood on lease administration. So sign up for that. There will also be there's also a link in the webinar chat if you want to sign up for that, happening on the 18th. So please join us for that. Okay, and that's back to you, Elizabeth.
With all of that, that concludes our session for today. We want to thank everyone for joining. We want to really thank Ignova from the LeaseCore team for joining us and presenting to everyone the solution that they have. I hope everyone was inspired by the demo. If you've got more interest in really understanding more about the solution, feel free to reach out. I posted in the chat the contact details for you to get more information. If you'd like to talk to your colleagues about the solution, share the recording with them. As I mentioned, it will be available 1 week after today. So next week will be posted. If you want to have more details and want to actually talk to someone on the ServiceNow team, feel free to reach out to myself or to Brett. We'll be happy to have that discussion. Or if you need help being put in contact with the Ignova team, we can also help with that. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you to the Ignova team. Thank you for Brett for joining this and having this conversation. As I mentioned, as soon as you leave the session today, you'll be prompted with a quick survey. Any feedback is welcome on how the session went today. If you've got additional questions, want a bigger deep dive, need more information, feel free to include it there, and we'll be getting back to you on those topics.